Hey, folks, welcome back to The Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. It's Sunday, 2 o'clock Central Texas time, 2:06, matter of fact. Welcome back. You know what? I was just on a call, came up to the office to do a call with the great Sam Kemp. And you know what? Some other fine fellows, the gentle ginger giant genius, Brandon from Rags to Riches. And, Nate Smith, who's the executive director of the TNM, and we were talking about Texan.con. This is a conference for Texit going to be coming up here in November 9th through 12th in Waco, Texas, in the Central Texas region. Looking forward to having people there, and we're going to be doing an event on the 9th, and so we're working out the details of that. So the 9th, you're going to want to save the date for that if you're somebody that's in the area or can come in, and we're really talking about what we're going to be doing and looking forward to that. We're really debating, between let's do some big pulse chain event. Wouldn't that be cool? Let me know what you think in the chat. It's good to see you. I hope you're having a good weekend, Sunday. One thing I have to say that kind of surprised me in a wonderful way is my daughter was voted homecoming queen. Can you believe that? She got nominated. I'm like, are you going to win? She's like, no, this other girl's going to win. And then I go to this thing and my daughter's the homecoming queen, which is crazy. So congratulations to my daughter, the homecoming queen. Fantastic. They had homecoming last night. It was, it's weird, when you have kids and you see them, little girls, and then next thing you know, they're women, which is just bizarre. Let's say hello to you and we'll get into some content today. This is really going to be more casual. Be chopping it up, if you will. HexForce1, what's up? Good Sunday, Crypto Heartbeat. Maybe we'll talk about some good Sunday vibes. HexForce1, good to have you here. And then, of course, Sam Kemp. He always is supportive. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you so much. You've been a supporter since the very beginning. What's going on, Magnus? Good to see you. Hey, folks, Hexy Quinn. We talked about you. We thought, what would bring the people out to TexitCon or to some Pulse Chain or Texan event? And I was thinking like a cage match between Hexy Quinn and Brandon from Rags to Riches. He thought for just a second about that, and he's like, man, I'd get my butt kicked. So I guess that's off the table. David Lee, all the way from southwestern Indiana. He'll be listening in. Have a great stream. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate you, David Lee. There's a lot of things coming up. I think we're going to have the Texan Tailgate tonight at 8 p.m. So there's a lot of stuff going on this evening. David Lee, as we wait, we just David Lee gives out the hugs. That's all he does. Pharaoh Gecko, let's go. Good to see you. October, it's the 1st of October, and this promises to be a I think it's going to be a green October. I really do. I think we're going to see some things really happening. And if you missed, probably one of the greatest streams I've had in a long time was with Axis Live. And if you missed that one, you need to go back and watch it. It was awesome. Not only did we learn more about who he is, but we also got a look at potentially the ultimate bottom in PLS. And that was pretty exciting to me. We've waited a long time. And these things are elusive, right? You're like, oh man, it's so bad. And all these things, and can it go lower? But you know what? These things, it's a pendulum that swings. And you know something's going on out there. And it's getting exciting. Getting closer to the Bitcoin halving coming up, we think, in late March. I'm sorry, April. But to me, a new year is always a good thing. And we're coming in here into the fall. And hopefully next week we're going to get a break from our 110-degree weather here in Central Texas. Pharaoh Gecko, thanks for being here. My online ghost, what is going on? Alon, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. Anders, what's up? Good evening, all. So we got folks from across the pond. Thanks for being here. Ruskino, hello, kind sir. Hello to you. Mixed Crypto Arts in the house. Hope everyone's good. Awesome. Drix, what's up, Drix? Congrats. Yeah, my daughter's yeah, it's crazy. It's weird for being a dad. She's my oldest, and it's just it's just an odd thing. I'm going through that, if you know what I'm saying, right? Got these little girls and they're doing princess parties, and next thing you know, they're like, literal princesses, if you know what I'm saying. NT Fryer, happy Sunday, all. Let's go. Hex Quinn, what's up? Clintrons, good day. Heartbeat crew. The past to possibility. I like that name. Hello there, Crypto Heartbeat from down here in the valley. Now, the question is, which valley are you in? There's a lot of valleys. Texan OG Day One, what's going on? We're going to see a lot of folks talking about Texan tonight. It's good to have you here. Tin Top, what's going on? And what is this? Slarty Bartfast, New Zealand in the house. Happy Monday. Living in the future. Thanks for being there on a, let me find out what time it is in New Zealand. What time is it in New Zealand? Let's see here. 8:11 a.m. Well, good morning to you. Hope you're getting a good stiff cup of coffee this morning as we visit here. It's 2:12 in the afternoon in Central Texas, and Ted Nelson's here. Afternoon to everyone. It is good to see you. This was really an opportunity to touch base with you. I haven't been streaming on the weekends. And we had that call today, and I thought, you know what? I'm in the office. We got a new office. My son's here. I thought, you know what? Let's talk about some important things. We've gone through this kind of bear market blues, and there's a lot of people that are looking at a lot of, they're trying to manufacture excitement. And of course, I haven't gotten into this whole Atropa thing and the 414 wallet and all that, and I'm paying attention. But at the end of the day, the core things are obvious. This is, we came in through the Hex community, right? We got Pulse Chain now. We think about what's happening with Richard Hart and the SEC. And then we've got Texan and Ophir and some exciting things that we're working on. A V3 fork of Uniswap called Freedom Swap. We've got an incentive token and additional communities. And we've got a little secret plan up our sleeve. And it's really, to me, exciting. But here's the thing, I look back to the days of when I first learned about Hex, right? This was prior to this massive altcoin summer. And if you think about it, we're coming into this time. And I imagine what was happening prior to me hearing about Hex. So I want you to think back to when you first heard about Hex, okay? For me, it was 2 a.m. and there was I literally couldn't sleep. And on late night television, so this was on cable television, I see this really out of place ad, and you can find it on YouTube if you look for it. But that's how I heard about Hex. I was in crypto in a very loose sort of way. My brothers had been into things. We'd looked at mining and all sorts of, but and I had an account on Coinbase, but it wasn't like I was in a community or really cared much about it. And I saw this ad, and it was talking about basically getting rich. I think it was a picture of a yacht and all this stuff. But what I was intrigued with was this idea of big payday. And I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a network marketing thing. And so I looked it up on my phone. It was crypto. And I thought, this is interesting. So I started watching the Hexologist. And this was back in the D Live days with all the lemons. I think a lemons emoji would be appropriate right now. But I'll tell you what, I just, and then I started listening to Richard Hart stuff, and I got in at, it was way sub penny, but it was interesting time because it was 2 days before big payday. And, I'm like, well, what can I put into this that my wife, if I lose it all, won't care? Honestly, that's what it was. And so it was $600, right? I didn't know anything about this community. And so I just threw $600 into it. And every time I'd get home for dinner with the family, I'd say, that crypto thing. I tell my wife, and She said, "Yeah." I said, that 600 bucks is $1,200. She's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, it's crazy. Every day I come home, it's 2,500, it's 3,600, it's 7,900, it's 10,000." I couldn't believe it. Then it was 12,000, and then it was 15,000. My wife, every single time I would talk about this crypto thing, she'd say to me, "That's not real." And I think a lot of people see it that way. They're like, crypto, it's not real money. And I had to prove it to her. My daughter was turning, the one who's homecoming queen. I had to prove to her that that it was real. And so we bought my daughter a car. And so it became this real thing. But for a lot of people that are new to crypto or don't understand what's going on, I want you to understand the timeline because that happens in cycles. And so I want to make a point on this stream to kind of compare right now to back then, right? Because if you think about a bull run, there were dynamics to that bull run. And of course, the number one dynamic was cheap money. Okay. So keep that in mind. We do not have cheap money right now. In fact, money is actually very expensive. We know that interest rates are high, right? The money printer is off. Of course, we had also what does so many say? We had a zombie virus as well. And so we have to keep those things in mind that those are significant parts of this whole thing, right? All this money that was pushed out there. We had Wall Street Bets at the time doing stuff about GameStop. We had a lot of things kind of working together, but the number one thing was the money printer was on. But also with that, we had, Richard Hart, having people wait multiple years, if that doesn't sound familiar, for his Hex, Bitcoin Hex at the time to launch. I caught up to this, really a year into it. Think about Big Payday was a year after the launch. And so all of these folks, think about the timing that we're in. And so I want you to think about how these things form. And I want to do this in the context of Texan and Ophir, as well as the Pulse chain in general. Is think about this. Back in the day, people like Brizzology, the biz with Briz, people like RG3, right? People like Coffee. This was a small group of people, right, that heard about this, that were following Richard Hart as things like literally crashed in the last bear market. And of course, here he comes out going, "Hey, I'm going to do this thing." He was going to do like a fluid dynamics coin. But people understood something about Richard Hart. He was unique and different. And one of the things I want to, if I can channel anything from that time, is Richard Hart was bringing value at the time, right? It was the bear market. Everybody was wrecked. And here was a guy like in the wilderness speaking out. And I was thinking about this as I compared things to the degenerate behavior I see in crypto in general, right? There's hundreds of coins daily that are rug pulls. And I was thinking about this community of people. I was thinking about you. Who watches Crypto Heartbeat? And I thought about that. I was like, gray-haired guy, wears a suit jacket. Who's watching? It's not the degenerate gamblers. I'm sure there's a couple of you, but for the most part, the people that are paying attention are not. Well, you know what's interesting? As I got into the Hex community, I started meeting the people that were the early OGs. And you know who they were? They weren't degens. In that lies a story. Think about where we are in this next cycle. What did it take this last time? It took some people, a very small group of people, the pirate captain RG3, right? Hexologist, Maddie Allen, Crypto Coffee, right? Some other guys that I didn't really get to know. What was it? Litecoin Moses, right? At the time, right? There's a number of other people that kind of came around. But if you think about it, what really was the catalyst for the community? One, obviously, Richard Hart, of course, right? 8-hour live streams. I was thinking about, well, what does it take? Well, the people that I've met who I would consider to be the OG Hexicans, these are the people who saw it at the beginning, right? They really understood what was going on and they really respected and appreciated what Richard was doing. He's like, hey, if somebody's going to create a better Bitcoin, it's going to be this guy. And I know some people that bet the farm, right? Some people that just literally, wow, amazing stories. But when I think about all of those people that I've met, those kind of hex whales, if you will, they're smart people. They're not degens. And that's a really interesting thing. And I was thinking about this community of who's in this kind of Texan community, but more importantly, who's in the Compassion Cartel? Who is attracted to that story? Who is attracted to the crypto heartbeat stuff? I'm a guy who does a Friday 2-hour stream with a guy talking about Jesus. You want to think about something polarizing. But I was thinking about who are the people. There's 10,000 people that have subscribed to this channel. I was thinking about who are we doing? Who am I speaking to? And you know what? As I meet you and I engage with you, I realize this isn't just a bunch of kids. And I think that there's something really powerful about that. It's not a bunch of degenerate gamblers. There's a lot of people out there that have families that have hopes for the future. And I'm like, well, what's the key to making this stuff work? Well, people in community that are genuine, who have, principles and have a purpose. That's the key to this. So what does it take for something to be excellent? Is it, well, it's got to have the right logo or it's got to have the right meme? No. So the question is, as you look out into this list of all of these possible things out there, what lasts? And I look at what has happened with Hex. Why does it work? Is it because of Lambos? No. Is it because of Louis Vuitton? No. Are some of those things crazy? Is it because of a movie? No. It's because of principles. It's because of sticking to principles and performance, right? Doing what you say you're going to do, even if it has taken multiple years. So I'm thinking about the future, right? I've got the Texan logo up here. I think about the work that we're doing with our team. Why do we have such a great team? Because they're not a bunch of degenerate gamblers. There's people who are like, I want to make DeFi something that literally can transform my experience in my life. And that makes me think, wow, shouldn't be a surprise that leadership matters. Richard Hart led us. And then people took that. Legitimate people took that. RG3, Coffee, Maddie. Who am I missing? I mean, so many great people, right? Hexologist. I mean, all of these people, they took it and they brought their voice to the table. Well, the same thing is true about anything in the future. What is a success? It's not just tokenomics. Tokenomics are important, but it's a greater cause. And so why did we tokenize the Texas nationalist movement? Why did we say, you know what? Independence is important. Well, it's the same reason that Richard said that freedom of speech and freedom of movement were important, because this damn thing's falling apart at the seams. It's busting up. It's rotting from within. And the promise of this isn't tokenomics, and it's not just money. It's what happens in community and adoption. And what does that relate to? People of principle speaking with other people. We don't sell a product, right? It's an immutable contract on the blockchain. But what makes things special? What makes things work? Is it because you've got a louder voice, you make a funnier meme or whatever it may be? No. Because in my opinion, what I would like to see is slow and steady winning the race. Well, what does that look like in crypto? Well, it means that you have something substantial. You're based on something that is immovable. You are representing truth, and you're wanting, as a goal to free the captives. We are in debt and consumer slavery across the world. And the question is, what is the hope? Well, DeFi is a big hope. Well, where's it going to live? It's going to live on the Pulse chain. We've got a lot at stake here, folks. But I'm realizing more and more, who are we? Right? You're not attracted to this channel if you just want to you're just chasing the latest shiny object. I mean, no offense. I mean, I'm sure there's some people in Atropa, and I don't want to piss off anybody. I'm glad for adoption in the Pulse chain. But this ain't an Atropa channel, folks. This ain't a Pepe channel. This is about saying, hey, what matters in life? And what are we doing? And so I think it's really important on this Sunday, October 1st, as we're getting into hopefully the exciting part of the next bull run as we lead up into the halvening. So the question is, who's going to win? Who's going to lose? Is it about getting the right meme, or is it about sticking to your principles? And I think that I want to literally, if I'm going to double down on something, I want to double down on something that isn't going to compromise our principles. That's why I'm so bullish on the Pulse chain. It's an Ethereum fork, folks, but it's not OFAC compliant. We got a guy who's under investigation with the SEC. Why? Because they're threatened by him. And what is he potentially going to do? Redefine, or at least create precedent as it relates to what is a blockchain? What does it mean when your wallet engages and you pay the gas? Richard Hart would say that's speech. Well, what's interesting is the case law suggested that it's speech as well because you're publishing and you are actually speaking when you push that button and you pay that fee. And it's really interesting. That hasn't been decided. This is a gray area when it comes to the law, but it's threatening to the very centralized powers that exist. And it's my desire to do anything we can to restore fairness back to the system. We've got a two-tiered system everywhere you turn. The justice, if you got money, you get better justice, right? It's all a multiple tiered system. It's like the haves and the have-nots. It's an extraction system. And the question is it about the money? No, but money's important as it relates to this. So the question is, can we reset this thing? Can we reboot the system? Can we return it to popular control? What would it look like if the warmongers didn't have access to the money printer? Think about that for a second. That's a big deal. It's a really big deal. But I'd just remind you, when you think about the future and we start seeing green candles, because that's a time that's coming, you kind of have to pick a horse to ride, and there's multiple horses you can ride. And you don't have to just ride one. But I look at this and I go, you know what? This path of representing freedom and sovereignty, in my opinion, you can't go wrong. It's stood the test of time, right? The truth will set you free, my friends. So we need to literally camp out. We need to build our foundation on the rock, if you know what I'm saying. So I want to communicate that to you, is that I see this timeline of where we are in the cycle. Okay. So let's go back to Hex. There's only a handful of people, right? Hexologist was pretty much streaming daily. And it was cool. And I was watching it and I'm like, hey, I like these folks. Some blue collar, people that are underdogs. And I really like that. Hardworking people that have been in the military, people that had seen hard times. And they're like, hey, we got a shot. And then to see what the components and tokenomics of Hex would do and potentially do, and then seeing it run, and then meeting the people who got in early. That was cool. I'm like, wow, I respect these people. These are smart people. This isn't a bunch of idiots. And you go, okay, there's something here. And then continuing to follow that, starting this channel. I started this channel 2 years ago today. This is the anniversary. 2 years ago today, October 1st, 2 years ago, I started this channel. And it's cool to be streaming on a 2-year anniversary and just think about what's happened in the last 2 years and what has happened with, the market, right? But having tasted and seen that this is possible, and you look at what's going on right now, Brandon always talks about the rubber band being pulled back. It certainly is. And if you think about this, a weird time that, the pendulum's shifting, but we don't have the money printer on yet. But we do have this, like, as Sami would say, a Trojan horse coming with the Bitcoin ETF. But you know what? There's only really one tool the Federal Reserve has in order to, they're Johnny One Note now, because the only thing they can do is turn on the money printer. We got elections coming up. We got the halvening coming up. We've got the Bitcoin ETF coming up. These things are going to pull back this pressure, right? It's going to literally create more and more potential momentum. The interesting thing is what's going to capture the attention and the heart of people. And when I think about the future of what's happening with authoritarians, when I see what's happening with elections, I'm gonna kind of give you a what if scenario. There's a lot of people that believe that the election, this last presidential election in the United States, was rigged, right? They stopped counting ballots because of the pandemic. They had printed ballots they sent out to everybody. They went against legislators in certain states to change the rules. Why? And then they stopped counting and then everything jumped. Okay. Wherever you fall in the spectrum of that, the core of democracy or the core of the republic is built on fair elections. Now you see, and you can see the evidence everywhere that, there's a group of people in the United States that don't want, one, Trump to be able to run, and two, want to change the very demographics and nature of the blockchain. I'm sorry, the blockchain of the voting system. Why? By getting people across the border. This last month, 260,000 people came across the Texas border. Folks, this is an invasion. But if you have a combination of invasion and shenanigans, and that's not even the right term, it's literally fraud in the election. And I don't know if you saw Tucker Carlson talk to Paxson, they tried to impeach. But they literally are keeping him from going after the Attorney General of Texas, going after election fraud. This is a big deal, folks. If you don't have the confidence of half the people in the United States that the elections are fair, I mean, that perception is really important. So then how does that relate to the blockchain? Well, what are we doing? We start this thing in, Texas, right? We support Texas independence. What's going to cause Texas to be independent? Well, two big things. One, massive election interference and proof of that, and two, an invasion. I mean, it's almost inevitable, in my opinion, because here's the thing: there is a war going on, a cultural war going on. There's a financial war going on, and hopefully the war with guns stops. But I think we're on a trajectory for that. And as things get crazy, the only opportunity or only remedy you have is independence of Texas. You want to imagine what Texan token looks like when we've got that on the ballot and we got people saying, nope, we're going this alone. Ninth largest economy in the world. It's not like we're like some Banana Republic random place. It's the ninth largest economy in the world, Texas is. I mean, they say don't mess with Texas for a reason. So as I look at things, I think, well, is this a frog logo or a doggy logo? And are we just like, hey, buy my doggy logo? No, we're tying to something that's absolutely fundamental to people's liberty, happiness, security, all those things. And you're like, well, is that all packed into a crypto? Well, I mean, yes and no. You're going to be damn glad it's here if this happens. But I just see this. I mean, this is a slow motion train wreck happening. But in a way, it has to wreck in order for the new thing to be created. And so as I look at the pulse chain, I look at the future of independence in Texas, there needs to be leadership in the world. And it's weird. It is weird that like Hungary, right? That from Budapest, there's leadership when it comes to democracy. Isn't it funny? And it's interesting. You think about kind of this imperialism. It's sad to see it failing like this, but it's running itself off the cliff financially, socially, all of these things. And there has to be a place. And I said this years ago. It's like, where do good people go? It's been a full 3 years since I read the book Texit, maybe 4 now. And a buddy of mine said at that time, he's like, there's no way this is going to happen unless, people are in the streets. Well, get ready, folks. People are in the streets. This is an interesting time in human history. And think about this. We just happen to be at the bottom of the bear market. Just imagine this combination of factors coming together. It's exciting. And November 9th through 12th is going to be TexitCon. And we're going to be doing an event there, and we're going to have a big presence there. And I really encourage you to come. There'll be a lot more details and information to come from that. But to make the biggest, to wrap all this stuff up, what am I actually talking about is it feels a lot like the last cycle. And what I mean by that is things launching and people leading that have principle, that are trying to do something differently, that have a purpose and a cause that is unique. I think that the hex narrative for the most part was better Bitcoin, get rich. I think that's inherently in crypto. I don't think you have to articulate that. I think that's kind of a understood thing if you're in it. It's kind of, the get rich thing is kind of in the background. But what happens when you have the utility of being a part of birthing a new nation or rebooting a nation, right? The Republic of Texas 2.0. It's really interesting. This would be the 7th flag over Texas. We'd return it to the Republic of Texas. Folks, there's a lot at stake. And to think that crypto could play such a significant role in that, I mean, what would it look like? What is a future? What's an independent Texas look like for the world? Well, I think one of the things that's really important that we learned from the Scottish independence is that when a political party takes over independence movements, they fail. So the key here is to return it to popular control. So what does that look like? It's going to require leadership. When all of this stuff and people like are paying attention and look around, they go, "Hey, well, it looks like this Texas independence thing's going to happen. Wow, this is our option." And the people that are like, "Oh, yeah, well, this is what we need to do." Everyone's going to start scrambling. So what is the right approach? There's got to be a model for that, and it has to include everyone at the table. See, when you reboot a system, think about your computer. You literally unplug the thing and restart it. Well, sometimes you got to run programs that clean up your machine as well. You got to defrag it in the old days of Windows 95. You got to clean it up. You got to reorder things. But what's important is that you have all viewpoints at the table. Now, that is that's just smart because people support what they help to create. You don't want to just create, and this is, I think, the problem with ideologues is this idea that what is really the purpose of a civilized society, right? If you think about it, what made America great at the beginning is that you had some freedom to kind of choose and do your own thing and speak, and there weren't people getting in your way. That's not the case anymore, right? Why do you think that song by Oliver Anthony was so popular, right? They want to know what you do, want to know what you think, right? We know that's true. It's like, no, we have to have a means to push back. And so, you know, I think about this future, whether it's just hey, there's a great cryptocurrency with a nice meme around Texan independence. Hey, that's fine. But I think about where things are headed. There's so much need for an independent leading Texas in the future. And it requires good, thoughtful people who are not excluding people from the table, right? Because here's the thing about what I would consider to be freedom and civilized society is that we are the sovereigns, right? The state isn't sovereign, the people are sovereign because you were created in the image of God. So, what happens when those people get together? And I think about early America, recognizing that we have inalienable rights that are given to us by a creator is the base layer. And then you say, well, what should the rules look like? What should it be? Now imagine somebody you vehemently oppose. Think about somebody that has political views that are opposite of yours. I would want to protect them. Why? Because they're made in the image of God. Think about the person that you hate. Think about somebody that you hate. I don't want to, assume that you hate someone, but let's say you do. Somebody that's like, on the other end of the political spectrum. Would you want them to have a seat at the table in the new Republic of Texas? I would. Because the foundation, the formative things that make America great, right, that we want to preserve in Texas, is that it has a place where you can say whatever you want to say, right? We protect these things. The problem is we've gotten to the point where it's not fair system, right? It's crony capitalism. It's not capitalism. It's not a free market. It's not, justice that's fair. So what do you do? How do you reboot the system? How do you return it to popular control? And how do you make sure that people, even if they oppose you, have a seat at the table? Doesn't mean they dominate. And I think that that's the thing that is so needed. Leadership, but it's not just in Texas. Imagine what would happen if we had principled leaders who are animating the tool of government in the nature and character of God himself. It's an interesting way to look at the future of the world. Now, there's a lot of people with bigger guns and those type of things, but the promise of decentralized finance is that the war machine has less of the power because of their ability to print the money. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that could potentially happen in this world is that we separate war powers, political war powers, from financial power. Because that's the promise of DeFi. This ability, the whole Bitcoin idea, the origin of it is the idea. There's only 21 million of these things. You have to mine them. But what has happened since then? And Axie's Alive said this a couple days ago when we streamed together. He said, you know what? I had to realize that we're going to have to sacrifice Bitcoin in order to get a true decentralized future. I thought, wow, what a thoughtful analysis that what has happened to Bitcoin? It's been taken over, right? The hash power, the control, the ownership, it's become centralized. And they think, we're going to win by taking over Bitcoin, right? Before they were threatened by it. But now that they've accumulated so much of it, it's now, hey, the power is ours. Folks, we've got to be committed to the principle, not to the maximalist, right? And in this case, where do I think the future of decentralized finance is going to live? And I think it's going to live on the Pulse chain, because I think it's the only thing that's not going to compromise to the centralized planners and players. So now, okay, we're just some people shilling some tokens. Well, now add a nation who is literally the best place on planet Earth for DeFi, showing people how it's done. There's a lot of opportunity that's coming, and there's a lot of pain that's coming as well. But I look at what we're doing and where we are in the market cycles, and it feels a lot like those early days of Hex. It does. It feels a lot like that because people were really struggling at the time. And that's what's happening right now. But if you wanted to really know what's going on, the comparison of what it was like back then, you need to talk to an expert. He's not only the CEO, he's the CFO, he's the CTO, he's the CMO, he's the mayor of Sassy City. He is the commander of Couch Cushion Maintenance. In the islands, he's known as King Kamehameha. He's my ace in the hole. He's my Kid Creole. He's my Bob Dole. He's not internationally known, but he's known to rock the microphone. He is the gentle, ginger, giant genius, Brandon from Rags to Riches.
Dude, what's up, man?
Dude, like, I thought for sure you wouldn't come in.
Why?
Because you laughed at me when I said I was going live.
Yeah,
I thought you were like, you're not going to mess with my Sunday. Like, what are you thinking?
Dude, I'm picking on you, man. Lighten up.
I love it. I love it. It's our thing. How you doing, Brandon?
Good, man. How about you?
I like that hat. It's sharp.
Yeah, SJ, Pulse Chain Tour. I think this was in the bags. They're very nice. I like them.
Yeah, they're really, I don't look really good. It makes me, I think I'm in the generation that the flat bill, real wide flat bill doesn't work for me. I'm kind of the dad hat, if you know what I'm saying.
No, I think if you did it backwards, you'd be all right. With
you
your
think
suit.
So?
Yeah, with your suit, dude.
Okay. I'll try that. Well, you look good no matter what.
Oh, geez. Don't make me blush.
Don't make me blush. So how you been, man? Are you feeling a little bit better about where things are headed now that it's October 1st?
It's October 1st.
It is.
That's wild, dude.
Dude, 2 years ago, I started this channel on October 1st, 2 years ago.
What? 2 years ago?
This
Today?
is the 2-year anniversary today. That was my first video.
Dude, how'd you remember that?
Because I knew it was October 1st, because you know what's funny is Ray, we moved to a new office 2 years ago, and he had the Charlie 19 so bad he almost died. I had to do the move myself, and when he came back at the end of September, I was like, hey, let's do the first video for Crypto Heartbeat. And that was when he was on with me. That was our first video. We talked about Richard and the meetups that he was doing.
See, too bad nobody cares, dude. Nobody cares 2 years ago. As nobody cares about me either. Dude, somebody made the point. They were, I don't know, they said something. I said, dude, I'm struggling right now with content. I'm like, I'm playing chess live on stream to keep people's attention. You got to do whatever you got to do in a bear market, man.
It's so true. It's so true. You know what, though? What I was saying earlier, I loved your comments on this. It has the feel, I think it's hard when you've gone through this dip. And I think about like Crypto Panda. I remember how when I first met him, how he was talking about the last bear market and how he was burnout, And then I think about now and how a lot of people are feeling. It feels very similar. But then I look back at the early days of Hex, right? And I came in literally a full year into it because it was 2 days before Big Payday. Think about how those guys slogged it out for a year, dude. Like think about, Hexologists and Coffee and RG3 and Maddie and all these guys that just slogged it out for a year before Big Payday. And then I remember they had their hats on, their top hats for Big Payday. And that was still, early before altcoin summer. And it feels a lot like, hey, the chances of this one. But if you combine this with massive new adoption, let's say Bitcoin ETF comes out, there more money gets into the system, and then the money printer turns back on, I mean, there's some people who think this could be a massive bull run. What's your gut?
Well, I mean, that's the whole point. Like, they want 2% inflation, so they
Yep.
have to use their. So everybody's upset because they're increasing rates right now to get inflation down, but they also have to decrease rates to keep inflation up to 2% at some point.
Yeah.
So that's the whole turn the money printers back on. People forget about that side of the Fed. So that's why I keep, like, I came to this epiphany about 2 weeks ago. I said, guys, it's going to turn back on. You just have to be patient because that's the way our system works. They turn the printers on to make us spend money to stimulate the economy. That's
Yep.
the foundation of this system and has been since the 30s.
Well, and don't you think, I mean, it's kind of the Democrats' playbook too, now that they're in control, is bribery. I mean, look what they did with the student loan stuff. I mean, there's going to be some program, some way that they're going to basically, with all the people that they've kind of shipped into the country, elections come up here. I mean, there's going to be some bribery, and there's got to be money printer turned back on for that election, don't you think?
Well, you're getting glimpses of this with the negotiations in the House with the bill that was passed to keep the government going for 45 more days.
Yep.
I think there were 90 Republicans that still voted no, and they're really, really pissed right now. They're
Oh
really
yeah.
pissed that got slammed and jammed through, and they're trying to take a stand to hold the government accountable. At the same time being ostracized because they're taking that stand from the mainstream media.
Yep.
And one interesting thing was, like, I was a part of the military when there was a shutdown. Did I still get paid? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who didn't get paid? The people who shouldn't get paid, which is the Coast Guard. But that's besides the point.
And you
Right?
couldn't go to the national parks. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Tough, rough. Okay. So it's like what's interesting is they're taking out these radio ads and they're using this as an opportunity to attack the other side. It's just like, man, sometimes I'm really, really involved in this and I want to voice my opinion. And then sometimes, like today or yesterday, when I'm hearing all these reports come out, I'm just like, I want to disappear to a private island and not come back ever again and not talk about it. But then I'm like, you know what? It's important to talk about. We need to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because if we don't talk about it, they just live in their own world and they're going to do whatever the hell they want anyway. So,
Yep. Well, you know what I'm hoping, and there's a possibility this can be the case. You know what we've got brewing behind the scenes.
sure.
Yeah, and there's more than we've even talked about, folks. There's some pretty significant things, and of course, if we are able to pull this off, Brandon, this is like, this is on par with like miracle stuff. But I'll tell you what, you combine that with all this unrest, you combine this with potential election fraud and the invasion on the southern border and all the things that are going on with, people just, they've had it. We see Texas independence as, the people kind of wake up and realize, hey, this is our only option. If we're going to preserve this thing, we're going to have to do it ourselves. I mean, that changes the very nature of this thing that we're doing. We wanted to support this and all this, but, we thought, well, maybe some people will, 66% of people will vote. I have a feeling when this actually comes to pass, it's going to be, we've talked about inevitability. It feels like there just won't be any other option. And I think about that as it relates to, imagine the form and function of Texas in the world, and then the combination of that and in crypto, right? That the money and the government changes. I could see it getting that bad. Can you see that happening?
Like, what I ask people, okay, so when you approached me about this a while back, and I took a step back, and after I verified that this organization was on the up and up, and they've been established for decades now, right? 501c4, and they care about Texans, and they care about the U.S. Constitution, and they care about these things. They care about what this country was built on. And then I took a step back and I said, well, what's the alternative to Texas independence? And I sat there and thought about all the elections, and I sat there and thought about all the charts and numbers and trajectories that I share and talk about over the years, that show that we're just heading in the wrong direction, and not one election has changed that outcome, has changed that trajectory in any meaningful way whatsoever. So I ask people, what's the alternative? What's the alternative to somebody like Texas standing up and saying enough is enough? Okay, what's the alternative to and here's the other thing. People think it's just going to be Texas. It's not just going to be Texas. Texas needs to be the first one to stand up to this.
Yep.
And some really cool things happen after that, for everybody. Okay. Yep. So at this point, dude, some of the stuff that I see coming out of Washington, and I know people said this 30 years ago, but dude, they are completely detached from what reality is outside of the Beltway. Completely.
Yep.
I'm driving through DC recently here. You see all the billions and billions of dollars of infrastructure and all the fancy cars and all the money that's pouring into that area, and realizing, because we do our research, how that money got there. The kickbacks to the contractors from the congressional, budget, and the unions that are involved, and then all the inflation that goes to the teachers, and it's horrible education up there, and it's just like it's a cesspool of printing, and it's disgusting, and I'm tired of it, and regular folks don't have access to it.
Yep.
So something has to change. So I ask everybody, what's the alternative here? What else would you like to see us support? What else would you like to see us do to actually affect change?
Yep.
It's got to be that. I don't see what else.
Well, now, this is the narrative. Everybody's asking in crypto, what's the utility? And I think one of the things that got me so intrigued about this, and you as well, is what more. Everyone thinks in utility as it relates to technology. Well, it helps with gaming, or this helps, whatever the technology is with utility. And I'm like, there is no greater utility than freedom. And if you think about it very specifically, this independence movement, I mean, this may go down in history, Brandon, as the Texan token, as such a catalyst for change, that it could be one of the greatest utilities ever that a cryptocurrency was tied to. And, obviously it's loose, right? It's not that, there's a direct relationship. But if you think about this, what does this future look like if we do have a place where good people can go, and we do have a place that, like I said at the beginning, returns things to popular control, meaning it's fair. And that's the thing. I think that it seems like that's such a controversial idea, that we would have fair elections, that we would have people stay out of your business, that you'd have free speech and freedom to move. And it's almost like, really? There could be a place like that? Yeah, America used to be like that. And I look across the West right now, Canada being one of the worst, and you go, no, I mean, we've got absolute nut jobs running the government. And it's gotten so out of hand that it's not even just about leadership. It's about the fourth leg of government, which is really the bureaucratic state, has gotten out of hand, and it just doesn't have the right checks and balances. And it's grown too large. I mean, we see it on every turn, not just the bureaucratic state, but now when you look at things like the military industrial complex stuff, it's just like, where does this stuff, where does it lead? When you're sending billions over to Ukraine, I mean, you could get into occupation of Syria, all of these things that has been kind of basically exporting our resources while people are dying of fentanyl. And I mean, look at the people on the streets these days. And it's unsustainable. And the question is, I hate to say this, is people are more likely to suffer than change. And so there's not going to be just like, hey, let's go to the polls and decide to be independent. It's going to be the only option. And there's going to be leaders who are like, all right, this is the way we have to go. And I hate to think that there would be any bloodshed over this, but I think that crypto's role in it has some promise for resetting or rebooting the system in a way that's more fair.
Yeah, and I also think that that's why they're targeting crypto as much as they are. Now, it might not be the idea of Gary Gensler to come after DeFi, for example, because he thinks that it needs to go away because it's going to reset the system. But the people that are influencing Gary Gensler, this could certainly be a problem. Some of the other folks, the unelected bureaucrats overseas that see what's happening with DeFi, they might have special consideration in how DeFi gets shut down in the United States. They might want that. Okay, all of the money from Wall Street and other major markets across the world are being funneled into Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, those. And they say it's under the guise of, oh, well, those are true proof of work, decentralized systems. And when you look at the facts, you look at actually who owns all of this, and then you also look at, for Bitcoin, for example, who owns all the hash power.
Yeah.
There's no way that any sane person could say that this is decentralized in any way, shape, or form. As far as I can tell, Pulse Chain is the only thing that everything's on a spectrum, on a scale. Pulse Chain is the only thing that really represents financial freedom the most out of everything, at the very least here. So, they don't want to see this succeed. They are extremely scared. This system is so fragile, and the honest truth is, cryptocurrency could topple this. They have to have people spending those dollars that they give out in order for this thing to keep going. Now, how far does it go? Maybe it goes another 10 years, 20 years, maybe 30 years before something catastrophic happens. I don't know. But DeFi definitely is a threat because DeFi is much more stable, and they don't want that narrative getting out, I don't think.
Yeah. Did you catch my stream with Axis Alive?
I have not seen that.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. And one of the things I asked him about was liquidity. I said, it seems like to me we need significant liquidity in the block in Pulse Chain, right? We were talking about native stable coins. We were talking about what's going to be needed. And I really pressed him and I said, what do you think it's going to take? And he was doing a little bit of back of the napkin math about, if there's an extra $1.5 billion of liquidity into the Pulse Chain, it could be literally completely transformative. And I thought about that, green candles drive adoption, right? People pay attention. I think we're set up for, especially if there's going to be some significant, revenue brought in, that it would be in the form of liquidity. He made a really good point. He's like, there are people out there that I think are paying attention. And once we get this whole what's a security, what's it not a security, and the whole Richard Hart thing gets solved as far as the SEC, and we may have to wait until the election, for people to actually make some sound regulation. But if we get some clarity there, I mean, this thing's going to pop so hard. The Pulse Chain, in my opinion, they're going to do everything they can to try to kill it because they know that it's the straw that could break their own backs. But I think that they're on the wrong side of history, right? Because I think that we see the potential of the abundance that can come from this fairness where everyone has an equal shot, not equal outcome, equal opportunity. But it's like, what if there was a place like Texas or any other country out there who embraced DeFi and literally said, you know what? I mean, imagine that, Brandon, that the people could invest in each other and know that the rules aren't going to change halfway through. Because that's the problem right now. If you think about it, the folks in the centralized planners in the Federal Reserve, they literally could just print money and buy gold or print money and buy Bitcoin.
Crypto.
And then, crypto. And then, you think about this, they'll devalue that currency. And, in this scenario, they've got to come to the table just like everyone else. And that's what I love about DeFi. It's like, no, there's no backroom deals here. You have to come to the contract yourself. And that's where, hopefully this new younger leadership group, around the world is going to see this. And maybe, just maybe, we'll have an opportunity to speak to these nations as we tokenize communities to say, hey, there is an alternative to just doing some sort of CBDC.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about this quite a bit with Pulse Chain. It's like, imagine that imagine that a new subdivision is built and there's a really, really nice house and it's worth, say, $300,000 is what they're actually selling it for. So $300,000 right across the street, an identical house. It's a newly built subdivision. And right across the street, that house is selling for $300. It's got all the same amenities. It's hooked up to the same stuff, the same connections, the water, sewer, all that. One's 300 and one's 30. Okay? So what's going to stop people once they realize that it's the same thing except better for a variety of reasons, decentralized, truly decentralized, no VC money in this, extremely strong foundation in terms of community, self-funded, essentially.
Yep.
Imagine what's going to happen there. And so, yeah, people are going to start waking up. I retweeted something out from a guy. I'm going to read this because I think this is important. Do you know Suppo Man?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's got 133,000 followers on Twitter, like 125,000 on YouTube. And he says, I have to commend Richard Hart Wynn. Last bear market, I was initially harsh about Hex, but Pulse Chain is working like a dream. Speed and gas fees are primo. You're going to see more and more of that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, one thing that kind of frustrates me was the downfall of BitBoy because he had access to such a large crowd. I think that was actually a hit for Pulse Chain, and I know that he respects Richard. But and he was one of the first to kind of at least indirectly endorse. But you're going to see it. You're going to see the towers fall here.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, we've predicted this. You know, you think about all of the speculation we did for 2 years. What is the point of the world's largest airdrop? You know, we haven't seen it come to fruition just because we haven't had momentum in the market. But, you know, people show the things they own. And you're absolutely right. This $30 versus $300,000 is really true. That's one component of this. But yeah, I mean, and then you just think of all of the other factors as, you know, authoritarians continue to clamp down, having a place where you can transact. Because I think that it's almost like Richard knows the future because, you know, he was talking about freedom of speech before it was the number one topic. He was talking about freedom of movement, obviously, when we were dealing with the Charlie 19. And now it's going to be the freedom to transact because you can't do any of the other ones if you can't. And to think that there's actually a place because all these other things are being compromised because there's just no one with the true principles. It's almost like he's the last kind of cypherpunk that's still kicking, you know? And so I'm excited about almost, and you know what's funny? It reminds me of my business. So I started out really at the end of, you know, the last implosion of the .com era. I started a business, and you know, our whole premise was, you know, we were in the fundraising world, and everybody wanted to sell. You know, I use the term everybody wanted to sell DVD players.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, we're going to make the movies. I said, you only need one DVD player, but you watch a lot of movies.
Right.
And so we got into the creative aspect of helping people raise money, create new money. And that's what, you know, but we trudged it out. It's like a band, right? That's got a good sound and they've been playing the bars and everything, and they're not really getting any speed. And next thing you know, there's a hit. And we had one of those. And it was like almost overnight. People were like, oh my gosh, look what you guys are doing. I'm like, we've been doing this for years. I think the same thing is true here. I think that there's going to be almost a flick of a switch. Is that we're going to get to the point of like, oh, I didn't know you guys were here. Oh yeah, and you have the copies too. And we thought that was going to happen immediately. Oh, as soon as the Pulse Chain launches, everybody's going to realize they've got these, you know, cheaper fees and they've got all these coins. I think it's the same thing. It's like staying power. It's you get credit for showing up, and I almost feel like we're just going to be here, and at some point people are going to be like, oh, really? Oh, I didn't realize that. Well, yeah, that makes total sense to me because I'm too compromised over here. Let's go to where it's easier to do these transactions. And it's like, I want people to not lose hope, to think, oh, well, because it's not a dead chain, folks. And we're in this situation where everyone's primed with tokens. So, and I just don't think we've seen that play out yet.
No, here's another thing, man, that I thought about recently here. It's like, okay, one of the problems that you see with a lot of these other cryptocurrencies are bad people own a lot of the supply. Okay, so people are going in and hedge funds are going in and they're scooping it up and they're gobbling up more and more and more and more. And there's nothing there to stop these people from trying to corner the market and destroy things. So, you look back at the Roman times, there were periods of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years that actually monarchy, Rome saw some of its best times under monarchy and benevolent rule.
Yeah.
And everybody really touts democracy these days, but there's 49% of people out there that are getting screwed in the process. They feel like they're getting screwed, right? And we've seen that time and time again. So what you see here is somebody who actually cares about the chain owning a majority of supply. Nobody's going to get that. I think that's pretty interesting.
Oh yeah.
To be able to protect the interests of what Pulse Chain is moving forward when nobody else out there kind of does that. And I know that somebody in the future could clip that and they could use it against me and they could say, you're not for true decentralization, this and that. I want people to live in the real world. And I've been quoted saying this all the time. The decentralization narrative in cryptocurrency is mostly false. Okay, because the network might be decentralized, but who owns the nodes on those on the network? Okay. Okay. And isn't a form of accumulation a form of centralization as well? Sure, it is. But I think that if Richard is the person that owns that supply and this is his baby, I think he'll act in the best interest of Pulse Chain.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
On Fridays, for the last 23 Fridays, I've done, these Right Side Up with Steve Staggs. One of the things he talks about, he's like, if there's a gun sitting on a table, it will sit there until everything deteriorates and rusts and doesn't, right? It only becomes animated when somebody picks it up. And it's the same thing with this tool here as well, as whether it's an argument between decentralization and centralization, it's more about animation. What is the nature and character of the Pulse Chain? Yeah. Well, it is reflective by those who are animating it. So I think about who are the people animating the Pulse Chain? Who's animating Texan token? And when you think about it, it's the people that hold it. And that's why I go back to the early days of RG3 and Hexo. Who's animating this? What is the nature and character of the people animating this? Who are they for? And when I look at Richard Hart, and I've done a number of videos on who he is from a character standpoint, and it's a guy who's principled. Now, do I agree with everything he says? No. Do I like his style? Well, I like it better now. But what's amazing is these principles are timeless. And he's animating them in a way that you say, all right, what is it going to defend? And so when you think about, it's not, in my opinion, kind of benevolent dictator. It's saying, all right, what is best for all of us? I'm at least considering you in addition to myself, right? So the most extreme centralized thing is a rug pull, right? I'll put up my liquidity, I'll get you to give this stuff, and I'll pull it because my intention to animate this is to screw you and win myself. Whereas I don't see that in Richard. And then I think about all of the nodes, and I think of all the validators, and then I think of the community. What do I see? What's the fruit from the community? Those that animate the community are people like a Wild SJ, right? Going out and giving of herself and traveling around. I see the people like the Spalbach team. And, I think about all the people that are streaming. They're not trying to get you into their paid program. They're like, no, we win together. That's the animation of all of this stuff that is centralized. Because if you don't have community, which is what are we trying to do? Bring people together. The technology has to be centralized. It has to be immutable. You have to hold your own keys. It needs to have those principles. But in fact, the essence of the ethos has to be centralized. We have to be on the same page or it doesn't have any value. And that's the thing that's so great is that the things that win are the things that have the staying power, right? They don't just have the fancy, the fancy meme. And it's just like that in music too. You see people that, something gets popular in music and people think, oh, I need to do that version. No, do what you do. Play the song that you play that people love you for. And I think that's one thing that Richard understands inherently is that it's not, just centralization or just DeFi. It's doing things and animating them in the right way, right? True, honest principles. That's how I see it, at least.
Dude, absolutely. And the the animation and the vehicle for that, this is, let's talk about this too. You started out with like a handful of streamers and they might have had like 50 followers, then 100 followers, and then 200, 500, 1,000. We've got a handful of folks now in a bear market that have grown to, I think, between, at the top levels, like the Hexo coffee guys, like I think KDP.
Yep.
At least on one platform, they have at least 30,000 or more followers. On two platforms, maybe more. You see platforms like you and I, we got started about 2 or 3 years in.
Yep.
And we've grown to probably on each side. I've got about 10,000 followers on YouTube. You've got about about the same or more.
Yep.
And Twitter. So we have probably 40 to 50,000 between you and I.
Yep.
So what happens in a bear market is much different than what happens in a bull market.
Amen to that.
There's absolute parabolic growth in the ability for us to spread the message about Pulse Chain. And all of these influencers are going to be tapping in to Pulse Chain. They're going to want to know where to get the alpha, but we're seeing this massive network effect of messengers.
Yeah.
We're not going to have to rely on anybody else to get the message out. We're not going to have to beg people to get on their streams, this and that, because we will be the biggest streamers in all of crypto for Pulse Chain. Yep. Certainly in the next 5 years, dude, we're going to see massive, massive, massive growth. And I think that is not talked about enough. And I want to encourage people that way.
Well, in a wild SJ says this 100%, Matt. Richard Hart is crushing it in the background right now. He will emerge again a whole new man. What's cool about this is I agree. I believe that's happening. One of the amazing things about Richard is when he can't get out there and chill and talk, he's thinking differently, right? What can he influence? I talked with Axis. We've talked about this many times. There's $600 million worth of DAI sitting there, right? That sacrifice wallet's still sitting there. There's a lot that can be done. And if you think about it, why did Hex do so well? There's going to be a time when it's go time and we're going to see these things move. Are we going to have to, are we going to have to wait a little bit longer? Sure. But, what's amazing is you listen to those old streams of Richards about launching in a bear market. I mean, get ready, folks. I mean, in a way, this is amazing, that Hex ultimately becomes kind of this new Bitcoin in the Pulse Chain, marketplace. And we've got all this other infrastructure and a place where now it becomes the only option for freedom and sovereignty. And you go, wow, this is shaping up to be incredible. And then you add in all of these people who've believed. How much sweeter is it when you've been beat down for this long and you still keep going? That to me is the satisfaction, is knowing, hey, done this for 2 years as of today. Man, you put in the time. How does it feel? And this next go around, everything's going to change, right? Yes. All the money is going to be digital. Last time, the money didn't become digital. This time, just look at this simple fact. PYUSD comes out with PayPal. Mm-hmm. And people are like, oh, yeah, they can shut it off. It's a terrible thing, right? It was overlooked, in my opinion. Anyone that's using the PayPal app, and I don't know if people realize how many millions and millions of users are on PayPal and how many different websites accept PayPal payments. But this has literally opened people up with this stable coin to literally buy anything that you could buy on PayPal with Hex. Before they did this, you could not do that. And people are like, well, that's the future that we're going to go into. Over this next bull run, the money's going to be digital. It's either going to go CBDCs and they're going to shut everything down in DeFi, or we're going to fight back and we're going to actually have our value, now turned into direct, means of exchange. I mean, this isn't going to be like, well, I've got to transfer it to fiat. No, it's changing, man.
It's changing. And that's what the market wants. Whatever the market wants, the market gets, because there's incentive for people to go out there and do it. And we've asked for this for a long time. We've asked for these payment rails to be attached to websites and this and that. It's going to come here. And again, this is so cool, because the one thing that I've noticed innovation, like I've said before, doesn't happen overnight. It's very, very, very incremental for the most part. I can't really think back of something that just happened overnight. So, 5 years from now, we're just going to kind of sit back and be like, oh yeah, I can buy, I can buy these boots with Texan.
Yeah.
I can swap Bitcoin for Texan, or I can do this or that, or I can do with Hex or Pulse. Like it's just going to be so seamless and so easy. That friction's going to be gone, and our community's going to be bigger, stronger, better. And I don't even care about the rest of crypto, man. I just care about Pulse Chain. I told people that at the Atlanta meetup. Like, I don't care about anything else.
Yep.
I just care about people being honest, giving us a fair shake, and I'll give you a fair shake. So
Yep. Fairness needs to be returned. Well, we're going to wrap things up, but my last statement is this. My kids and I were in the car, and we were at a gas station, and and they literally said, "What is that?" And it was an old payphone. Right? When's the last time you actually saw a payphone? It was still sitting there, and they're like, "What is that?"
yeah.
And I think about my kids not knowing what a payphone is and never having used one. And I think about it and I go, you know what? That's what we're going to be talking about with fiat, right?
Yeah.
Fiat currency. We're literally, and we see that obviously with, debit cards and things like that. But it's almost like this is the battle over the money. And the fact that we actually have a way in which it can be utilized between parties without, central banks. They've got to be shaking in their boots. No wonder there's so much concern, because the future of this is we actually have a position now. And so, Brandon, I appreciate everything you've done. You and I, it's been really cool to stick it through all of this, this bear market.
We've stuck it through, man. I mean,
there is no question about it. Woo. It's good. I was watching our first ever, and I have to admit we were better looking back then. Just to be honest with you.
Well, that maybe you, but fine wine, the older the violin, the sweeter the music.
That's true. Yeah. And it is a mahogany color. Folks, thanks for joining the Pulse today. Brandon, thanks for coming in. I didn't expect you to jump in, but I'm thrilled you did.
I still like you, Matt.
Well, thanks for admitting it. Tonight we've got the Texan Tailgate coming at 8 p.m. Eastern time or Central time.
It's
8
9
Central.
Eastern, 8 Central, and
8 Central.
And yeah, so then there's something special that we're gonna have for one of our team members. So everybody tune in.
Okay, very cool. Okay, so that's at 9, 8 Central, and then what do you got coming up this week? Anything you want to, what you're gonna be focusing on this week?
So did you see my Ukraine stream by chance last week?
I did not.
Okay, so Tucker Carlson interviewed.
Yes, I saw that. I did see that on Tucker. Yep.
Yeah. Well, the general. Did you see him interview the general? That's what I was talking about.
No.
So he interviewed this general, and the general was talking about Russia. And here's the thing: the Ukraine conflict. I don't know much about it, so I've been going down this path to learn more about it. Okay. After that stream, I had somebody DM me who is extremely pro-Russian, and they reached out and they said, "Hey, Rags, I'm a fan." He's like, "I'm going to give you my Telegram channel. You're going to think I'm a crazy communist." He was like, "But if you're open to it, I'll give you my side since you asked for it." I said, wow. Yeah. I said, I want to hear all sides. I want to hear your side. I want to hear the other side. I want to learn about this. So I think I'm going to have that guy on stream.
Wow.
And we're going to have a conversation. So I'm kind of interested about that. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Well, Wild SJ says RG3 in Wales are going live in 40 minutes. Folks, that's something great. I'm going to be watching that. Yeah, that should be awesome. And then I'm looking forward. You had RG on. That was a really good stream, by the way. You and RG.
Yeah, I was like RG. I was afraid he was going to backfire, getting a little bit too personal, but he opened up, and I was very appreciative. What a good dude, man. Just all. Do
you have a good time in Atlanta for the Pulse tour?
Dude, I got to hang out with the Texan crew the entire time, dude, and we had a blast. They taught me how to smoke a cigar. I actually look good doing it. Surprisingly.
I saw that. I saw somebody lighting it for you.
Yeah, and I had no clue. They taught me how to do it right. It's kind of like rich white women and wine is the same thing with the cigars with the crypto bros and the men. So
wow, you're getting cultured here. Here's the big question: Do you think we'll get Quinn to come to TexaCon?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think they probably kick her out if she tried to go in, but
Yeah.
who knows?
We'll make a space for her. We'll try to get. We're gonna try to get as many people. So this is just the first time I'll shill it, and I'm gonna be shilling it for the next 2 months here. We've got Texan coming up 9th through the 12th in November. This is going to be the conference and meetup. Brandon, you're coming in, is that right? Awesome. Okay, so folks, 9th through 12th of October. In November, in Waco, Texas, and so that's when we're going to do it. And oh, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Brandon.
Yeah,
you're a guy who's into the weather and those type of things. I don't know if you know this, but April 12th ish.
Okay.
Right through Central Texas, literally right through where we are, is the total eclipse of the sun. And it is literally cutting right through the center of Texas, and it will be literally full right through Waco and in the Central Texas area. So check that out. I want to do an event for the eclipse. There's going to be people coming in from all around the world into Central Texas to get totality. So that's something also to think about here. That'll be right around the time of the halvening. So
okay, I'm down, dude.
We'll have you with your
sacrifice a buffalo, pulse chain. We're good, right?
As long as you got your druid outfit on, we'll be in good shape. Folks, thanks for joining the Pulse. Do not mess with Texas. Take care, everybody. See you tomorrow.